Right, I think I am live. I do apologise for the delay. I was distracted by a stream. A really bad stream. Where somebody I know was trying to play a video game, and as always, badly. Which was cringe, I guess. For the last few hours, I've been watching something else as well, which has been going on in UK Parliament, and I can show you now. This. Yeah, doesn't look like much, but if I scroll back a little, it is the debate on Brexit. Basically, there are a number of amendments currently going through Parliament with this. They're on a recess at the moment while they do some other shit. And, yeah, it's quite interesting because there are a number of amendments coming forward tonight, and they are concerning. I figure before we jump into PMQs, it would be wise to look at the amendments that are being voted on, because it's relevant. So, and I have archived this because it was important to. If I'm going forward, I may as well keep or be consistent. So, B was voting on no deal. This will be rejected. Common Market 2.0, which has been in the past rejected. EFTA and EEA, European Economic Area, a customs union, Labour's alternative plan, which is essentially stay in the single market and the customs union, revoking Article 50 to avoid no deal, confirmatory public vote to confirm the deal or no deal, not on Brexit, and then of course contingent preferential arrangements, which are unknown. Theresa May has said, excuse me, that she will step down to get her deal across the line if her deal goes through. But the Speaker has thrown a spanner in the works for this, in the sense that he has said that the deal has to fundamentally change to be brought back to Parliament, and so she can't realistically bring her deal back to get through Parliament. Let's bring this back up. Hello to, oh god, so many people, I do apologise, Beechin, Leslie, Ian, Stuart, Caitlin, myself, Ash, again, hello Ash, Amatrine, Echo, Liam, Serene, Wandering Lisa, and of course you, Karma, as well. Apparently knows everything about me. You're not a stalker at all. There is a video that I forgot to put up, and I don't know if I can, but I'm going to quickly go and drag it onto my desktop so at least I have it, because it is a very interesting video, and I might be able to play it near the end, because it's just about interesting enough. It was mentioned during the debates, and it's relevant to something Blackford will say as well, the paper fiddler. And I think it right that when that happens, we give him his moment, because he's going to make a mistake, a very big mistake. And I also want to showcase the position of someone else. I forgot to upload it to YouTube, which would have made this a lot easier. So yeah, that's hello Tim, and I always look stunning in my pajamas. So that's not PMQs at all, is it? No, that's Discnar. There we go. Right.
The Prime Minister, Stuart Hosey.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
The Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join with you in welcoming the United States Ambassador to see our deliberations today in Prime Minister's questions. Mr. Speaker, I recently announced at Prime Minister's Questions that I would be chairing a Serious Violence Summit, and I can inform the House that this will take place next Monday. The summit will bring together ministers, community leaders, agencies and experts to explore what more we can do as a whole society to tackle the root causes of serious violence, as well as intervening with those most at risk. Following the initial summit, Cabinet Ministers will be hosting a series of roundtable discussions with national leaders and those on the front line. And this will complement the recent announcement of a £100 million violence reduction fund targeted at hotspot areas, along with the £200 million youth endowment fund that is being established this week. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Stuart Hosey!
Before he asks his, quote, question, I didn't interrupt that because that is one of the few times she stood up and said something interesting. Because most of it for the last 2.5 years has been regurgitated spiel and drivel and lies, but you can't call a politician a liar in that room. There must be no doubting of an MP's integrity.
I wish the Prime Minister well with the serious violence discussions he's having. However, Brexit is already costing the UK around £1 billion a week in lost growth.
That doesn't mean the economy isn't growing. It is the projected growth of what would have happened if we stayed in the EU over our decision to leave the EU. So it's not even growth that actually exists. It's projected and bullshit.
And we know that 80% plus of the public are unhappy with the way in which this has been handled.
Yeah, we just call them the English. They just don't give a shit.
This is not the fault of Guy Verhofstadt, Michel Barnier, Donald Tusk, or any MP in this House voting according to their conscience.
Yes, but their conscience and what the people voted for apparently are two totally separate things. Because their conscience says, let's just say stay in the EU because that's the easy way out. I don't know what it is with people now. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard for people to just do something that's a bit difficult? Why do people have to quit? Let's go with a brilliant example, be smokers. The easier option is to just keep smoking. The harder one is to quit. What is better for you? Quitting. And I know it's a false equivalence. I know that. But most of you, who aren't utter retards, get the point. Anyway, and yes, this is ass cancer.
That fault lies with the Prime Minister, who is the architect of the withdrawal deal.
Agreed.
So can she finally concede to the House? She is liable, responsible, culpable for the chaos which is the Brexit debacle, and when she will be resigning.
It's a good question. Thankfully, we know the answer to this. She has said that if her deal gets across the line, she will step down. Which is one of those damning statements, really, isn't it? And fantastic. I'm glad you made it to the stream, Lael. And hello, Director Greyhound. I think it's one of the... Oh, and Super Cuckrot. I'm sorry, I didn't notice. It's a damning statement for the Conservative Prime Ministers that the moment something gets tough, they leave. In the sense of Cameron, it was the moment he lost. I personally believe he should have stayed on. I believe that while he did lose it, it was his responsibility to see it to its conclusion. I also think, considering how strong he is, he would have done a better job negotiating this than Theresa May. And that's not saying much, because he forfeited a considerable amount of our clout within the EU during his negotiations, which then forced the referendum in the first place. Hello, living the dream. So I do actually wonder how long she'll be in this job for, because I don't think her deal will get across the line.
To the honourable gentleman. The Brexit deal delivers on the result of the referendum. Now, the honourable gentleman has a different view to me. I know he doesn't want to deliver on the result of the referendum. He wants to try and keep the United Kingdom in the European Union. 17.4 million people voted to take us out of the European Union, and that's what we're going to do.
That's an important point, because a number of MPs will reference how 1 million people were on a march in unison against Article 50. How nearly 6 million, well, let's confirm how many it is at the moment. Oh, it's 5.8 million, archived and linked below. And this petition, by the way, is going to come back soon. We're going to have a little word about it because, yeah, legitimate, no.
Andrew Bridgen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. North West Leicestershire voted overwhelmingly to leave the European Union, and for the past 2 years, the Prime Minister has told my constituents on over 100 occasions that we'll be leaving on the 29th of March 2019 with or without a withdrawal agreement. At the last minute, she begs our EU masters for an extension to Article 50, delaying our departure. Does my right honourable friend realise that the good people of North West Leicestershire, they will forgive her for this? Mr. Speaker, they're good people, but they're not stupid people, and they will never trust the Prime Minister again.
Can I say to
Prime Minister
that I hope that the
Where was the question?
I hope the message he will take back to his constituents is a very simple one, which is we can indeed guarantee delivering on Brexit. We can guarantee delivering on Brexit if this week he and others in this House support the deal.
And Echo is quite right. The current debate here, the MPs voting, and I'll scroll down here, indicative votes, or indicative if you want to pronounce it differently. And I will quickly...
Ayes were 268. The noes were 295. So the noes have it.
I don't know which amendment that is. Hang on, no.
Oh!
Right, I could actually find out from that. Give me a second. Give me a second, because that's important. Which one is it? Well, that is useless. Never mind. Let's go back to PMQs, because I can't be arsed with this.
Jeremy Corbyn!
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Irate Bear. The EU said that they'd only get an extension if they voted on her deal. They won't get an extension otherwise.
This chaotic and incompetent government has driven our country into chaos. You know the scale of the crisis, Mr. Speaker, when the TUC and the CBI are united in writing to the Prime Minister saying that a Plan B must be found to protect workers, the economy and the Irish border.
It's important to note that the unions are against Brexit anyway, so they would always be opposed to anything that takes us out of the EU, because by doing that, we do in fact have to change. Oh, that difficult thing again. And of course the simple solution is what people prefer, isn't it? How pathetic.
My question on Monday went unanswered.
I'll go back to him in a sec, Bear. Morgan Johnson have chosen to back it because there is now literally no choice.
So will the Prime Minister now say what is her Plan B?
Her Plan B is to commit Sudoku. Yes, I said Sudoku. And sacrifice herself to get her deal across the line. That is her only reasonable play, depending on how these votes go on here. I will quickly check again, because it is important to be up to date on this. Okay, so the current okay, we have something here. So the first four options for the bills this evening, the amendments. The first one, no deal, not supported. 164, 400 against. So 160 in favour, 400 against it. The Common Market 2.0 was not supported. 188 in favour, 283 against. EFTA and the EEA not supported. 65 in favour and 377 against. Thank you, Ragnarok Alphabet. And yeah, basically an abortion of the UK. Customs Union not supported. 264 in favour, 272 against. The remaining ones left are Labour's alternative plan. Sorry. But they weren't supported. Labour's plan was not supported. 237 in favour, 307 against. Revocation of to avoid no deal. 184 against, 293 in favour. Confirmatory public vote. 268 in favour, 295 against. And contingent preferential arrangements. 139 in favour, 422 against. Which is all... That's all of them. That's, as far as I'm aware, with Conservative MP Sir Oliver Letwin saying, "It is a great disappointment that no one option is accepted by a majority, and a motion has been put forward to the House to reconsider on Monday. So the only hope left is her deal, or no deal." And just to poll this in the chat, press 1 if you support her deal, press 2 for no deal. So none, not a single one of the options I showed you earlier was supported. How interesting is that? Yeah, I figured you would all say 2. That's what I'm talking about. No deal, everyone. Oh, and Minnie Lesper being an edgy girl. Boy, girl. Right, back to PMQs, because this is... Oh, no, we're here now. Here. Oh, hang on, this is the indicative vote thing.
People's vote got 268
this is the... Yeah,
votes.
let's listen to this.
We didn't win, but we got more votes for the people's vote than the government did for its proposition. Mr. Speaker, I think it is becoming increasingly clear that this House cannot find a way forward. This government, this Prime Minister, has failed to provide leadership.
Isn't it ironic that he's saying the House can't find a way forward, and yet he was one of those calling for the House to take control?
An election to end this impasse.
Lol, he wants a general election. What a twat. Let's go back to here. This is going to be very interesting. And no Brexit. Blair Ashby, you're quite right. That's actually an option that has been touted as a possibility. Because, oh, fantastic, Teddy. With the way this has gone, there's a belief that it just won't happen at all anyway. Let's see how this goes.
Prime Minister!
Can I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman, as he knows, we are continuing to work...
No, we didn't hear his question. My apologies.
Border. My question on Monday went unanswered. So will the Prime Minister now say what is her plan B?
Yeah.
Right, so he's asked her what is her plan B. I wrote there, correct me if I'm wrong, Omegon, but the May's deal keeps us shackled to the customs union single market. Yes, it does. Basically. It does allow for trade, though, I believe. But it's to be negotiated upon, and it has to be to the EU's standards, which we have no control over. So he's asked her about plan B. It's important.
Prime Minister!
Can I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman, as he knows, we are continuing to work to ensure that we can deliver Brexit for the British people and guarantee that we deliver Brexit for the British people. We have a deal which cancels our EU membership fee, which stops the EU making our laws, which gives us our own immigration policy, ends the common agricultural policy for good, ends the common fisheries policy for good. Other options don't do that. Other options would lead to delay, to uncertainty, and risk never delivering Brexit.
She didn't answer the question.
Enemy going!
Mr. Speaker, the only problem with the Prime Minister's answer is that her deal has been twice defeated in this House by, in one case, in one case, Mr. Speaker, the largest ever majority by which a government has lost a vote in our recorded parliamentary history. Reports today suggest that a former Conservative Prime Minister is telling Conservative MPs that pursuing a customs union with the EU is the best way of getting Brexit over the line. Does she agree with him, and will she be supporting any motions for a customs union?
I would assume this is John Major, by the way.
Afternoon.
Prime Minister!
I think we now know the customs union was rejected, so it wouldn't matter if she supported it, which I know she didn't, because she supports her deal and only that.
The Right Honourable Gentleman, what we have negotiated, the government's deal negotiated with the European Union, delivers the benefits of a customs union while enabling us to have an independent free trade policy, to negotiate free trade agreements in our interests and not rely on Brussels to negotiate them for him. He used to stand up for independent trade policy. Now he wants a customs union. Now he wants to throw away the idea of an independent trade policy and leave Brussels negotiating for us. We want to negotiate our trade in our interest, in the interest of people across this country.
Two things. Firstly, horny hippos. That would be good if our Conservative MEPs didn't vote in favour of it, which they did. Just saying. The argument Corbyn can reply here with, yeah, spitting image was awesome. With her argument about protecting jobs and stuff. Well, that's his argument. Is that he wants to protect jobs. The easiest way to do that is to stay in the EU. Because apparently he likes it to be easy as well. Oh, and Ragdoc, thank you. The EU will not let the UK slide back into it, as if all this hasn't happened. May has already weakened any clout the UK truly has, and them chomping at the bits to degrade the UK into a vassal state. I know. No deal to me is the best option right now. Because honestly, this is getting stupid. And thank you for the donation.
She knows perfectly well that our policy is for a customs union in order to protect jobs, in order to protect society, and she will also know that the TUC and the CBI have called for a customs union as part of a deal.
Typical socialist, calling for something that is in and of itself stagnant. Something that's simple, easy, and doesn't really offer any opportunity of growth. Stay within something that you can't cherry pick to be a part of, but stay in something that is in and of itself just a single entity. That's it. And realistically, it still doesn't protect jobs anyway. You're basing it on the assumption that the single market or the customs union won't ever change. And bear in mind, single market can have a downturn, and the customs union we have no say over. But if we stay a part of it, we have to change our standards to match something that we don't control. That is wrong. It's very anti-democratic, I think, which I guess doesn't makes perfect sense really with you, doesn't it?
In fact, the letter wrote to all MPs yesterday saying a deal that delivers a customs union and strong alignment between the UK and the EU rules is the preferred outcome for the business community. So it's a bit strange when a Conservative Prime Minister says she doesn't want what the business community want. These are indeed strange times, Mr. Speaker.
It's not a case of what she wants. It's a case that she is delivering on what the people said. You, in your rather patronising tone, are trying to make it seem like it's a party politics thing. It's not. A Remain Prime Minister is enacting the will of those that voted to leave, who outvoted by 1 million people, or 4%. Remarkable, this condescension, really, isn't it?
Can the Prime Minister say why she will not include a customs union in the options that will be discussed today?
Prime Minister!
Can I ask the Right Honourable Gentleman that he doesn't just read the question that he thought of previously, but actually listens to the answer that I gave to his previous question?
It's also important to note that the idea of a customs union has been brought forward to Parliament at least twice, and it has been rejected twice, and now a third time today. In a slight, I do want to make this really obvious point here, Bercow is stopping Theresa May from bringing her deal back to Parliament for a third time, but he has selected amendments that have repeated themselves, merely because the wording was slightly different and brought forward by a different MP. They are still the same bills, they're still the same amendments, they are still in the same motions. It is cringe at this point to keep doing this. Keep saying that it would be supported by the MPs, but it was rejected. Clearly, you are not as well supported as you think, and gooseberry jam is amazing.
And I will repeat it again, because the right honourable gentleman stood on a platform to be able to do trade deals, to have an independent trade policy, and to deliver Brexit. His policy on customs union breaks the first promise. He's never explained why he wants to abandon an independent trade policy, and his policy on a second referendum breaks his second promise. Whatever happened to straight talking on his politics?
To be fair, the Labour Party have been inconsistent from the start, to a point where I'm still not entirely sure what their policies are. Communist sales rep an oxymoron. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister does...
And yes, a general election would happen, Irene, but I think the turnout would be so low it wouldn't matter.
...seem to realise that she doesn't have a deal that's been supported by this House. And that our proposals for a customs union do give us alignment on workers' rights, consumer standards and environmental protection.
But, and it's important to note, yours was also rejected. Labour's alternative plan was rejected by the House, a few weeks ago in fact, and then again today.
And do not begin with a race to the bottom, which is what she and many on her front bench actually want. Earlier this week, Mr. Speaker, the business minister resigned from the government, saying the government's approach to Brexit was playing roulette with the lives and livelihoods of the vast majority of the people of this country. Why is she prepared to carry on risking jobs and industry in another attempt to yet again run down the clock and try to blackmail the MPs behind her into supporting a deal that's already been twice rejected?
Okay, that's a good question actually, but I do want to point out oh no, what was it? Oh dear. There was an important point I was going to make, and I've completely forgotten it. My apologies. Labour's policies, and actually I know what it was now, the reference to polling 12 points below the worst Prime Minister in history. He's also the only person in that room that's lost a no confidence vote and is still in office. You're not late, Prospero. You're in time. Quite frankly, you haven't missed much either. I've only been doing this for half an hour. Yeah. With Corbyn's policies, it does appear that it is less about offering a reasonable alternative, because it still doesn't get through Parliament. Therefore, his argument is moot. He knows this, but for some reason he's not listening. This is party politics 101. And it's just embarrassing.
I say to the right honourable gentleman, we have been negotiating in order to protect jobs. What he says about a race to the bottom is wrong. As he well knows, we have been working across this House. It is absolutely clear in the political declaration that we agree to not falling back in workers' rights, but also we are a government that has enhanced workers' rights.
That is actually somewhat true. So, little known facts. I was earlier on Discord talking to a few patrons about workers' rights in the UK, and the living wage and the minimum wage, and also the work time directive, which is an EU thing, but I actually support it. And during this discussion, I remembered back when I was working for ANOVO, I was an engineer for them. Fixed mobile phones, or cell phones as they should be called, because they connect through cell sites, not mobile sites, because they're positioned in the shape of a cell. Therefore it's a cell phone, not a mobile phone. Argument for another time though. Maybe I'll make that my own little mini drama alert with someone. Fuck it. And I was an agency worker, and so I had a 0-hour contract, but I worked full-time hours. But I was always under that threat that if I ever took a sick day, I would lose my job. So I never took a sick day. Whenever they offered overtime, I said yes. I would always do it. I'd arrive early, I'd stay late, because of fear of losing my job. Because I'd been unemployed at that point up until taking that job about a year, and it destroyed me. When I lost that job, I lost it like that. Redundancy was very quick, and yeah, people suffered. But over the years since then, when I was unemployed, the rules started changing. Now, yes, I went self-employed, and of course I do YouTube, which pays most of my bills, to be honest. I mean, my cleaning work pays the bills. This is what I do, and I make reasonable money, enough that I can buy a nice guitar every so often, and yeah. But the Conservatives, when they came into power, they had to make some changes, and one of them was to increase the rights of agency workers. So they could request the right to leave, and fair pay, equal pay in fact, with those on full-time contracts doing the same job. These are policies introduced by the Conservatives. While it is in fact more commonly noted that Labour introduce greater worker protections, this Conservative Party has done things that would reinforce workers' rights. I believe 0-hour contracts have either been diminished or banned, or there is a motion or an attempt to remove them entirely, to replace them with a basic minimum hourly contract, which I think is a better idea. 0-hour contracts are dangerous. It's basically, you work when we need you, and when you do work, you then have to dazzle just so you're impressing the people enough to be able to go back. And it's not even a guarantee at that point. With 0-hour contracts, you are the bitch. And I don't like that. I'm 33, I don't care for it. I don't like the idea of being someone's bitch anymore. I will say, being an agency worker back then, the stress was horrible. And so I don't regret the path I ended up on. I just hate the fact that I was unemployed for 4 years after I lost that job. It's unfortunate, but we adjust. It's something I noticed while looking for work. The Conservatives did introduce new rules that protected workers better. And Lael, I was overqualified too. It's funny when you're in a town that only has retail and care work, how many people won't employ you because they see a master's degree on your CV.
UK. There's the problem. The Labour Party can never stand it when they are told that Conservatives have stood up for workers, because that's what the Conservative Party does. We've enhanced workers' rights. We stand up for workers with our tax cuts, with our national living wage, and with higher employment.
In a straight question to the Prime Minister, she was unable to guarantee what's called dynamic alignment with European standards.
Because to do so would be expensive, which I'm not making an excuse for. It's why we privatised a number of sectors, because we couldn't align with the EU, so we had to privatise it and then subsidise, because that was cheaper somehow. But also the fact that if we're leaving the EU, why the fuck should we? We should have higher standards, which actually, in a number of areas, we have a higher standard than the EU does. So how is this what you're saying now a talking point? You absolute schmuck.
And she knows full well that the Labour proposals are to use the EU standards as a baseline from which we would improve them, including giving workers full rights at work from day one of their employment, and ending 0 hours contracts and many other things.
Many other things, that's quite nebulous, don't you think? I'm all in favour of giving workers' rights. I really am. I really am. I do support workers' rights. But your plan was rejected. What do we say to that, I guess? Okay, I have a new thing. If you think Jeremy Corbyn is a bit feckless, can you please write in the chat, Jezza is a cuck? If you disagree, press 2.
In his resignation letter, Mr. Speaker, the Business Minister also said to the Prime Minister that he hoped she would now act in the national interest and enable Parliament this week to find a consensus negotiating position. If today or on Monday a consensus alternative plan emerges across the House, will the Prime Minister accept that decision of the House and accept it as the basis for the UK's negotiating position with the EU henceforward?
Isn't it interesting that I like that someone wrote Jezza was a cunt and Jezza is a cock. Beautiful. Jezza is a cuck, a feckless clod pate. Pate? Pate? I don't know what that is. With Jezza here, he references the amendments. Now, they were indicative, so whether or not the government actually had to do shit about it is subjective. An argument to be made for other people, I guess. Nice. I like the... Jezza is a geography teacher, that is the insult. But Labour's, all the amendments were rejected, so now we know that while a number of MPs wanted to give Parliament the say, which is important to talk about now because 3 days ago they voted to take control of it. That's what they did. MPs voted in favour of taking control of the Brexit negotiations. And look what happened. Tonight, 8 amendments were brought forward and all of them were rejected. And they can say, oh yes, well we got the most votes. You're still lost. This isn't it's like taking all the options that were lost and saying, right, well what we'll do, we'll take the one that lost the best or did closest to, not losing, and we'll go with that. You're still a loser. You'll always be a loser because you couldn't get a majority. Not one idea in that Parliament will either, because the majority of those people do not want to leave.
Prime Minister!
Well, gentlemen, the objective that we should all have is being able to guarantee, is being able to deliver Brexit and guarantee delivering Brexit to the British people. And the Right Honourable Gentleman stands there and asks me and raises this issue of workers' rights. We've been very clear about non-regression in relation to workers' rights and environmental standards. He shakes his head, it's in black and white in the political declaration that has been agreed. But we've also been clear. He ends his question, and I'm hearing the Shadow Trade Secretary is shouting from a sedentary position about the wishes, about listening to Parliament. What we are going to...
You know what you should do? You should listen to your constituents, because you'll find the majority of them voted leave. And another interesting point is that the majority of those leave voters came from Labour constituencies. How interesting is that?
To do on workers' rights in say that actually no, we won't simply accept automatically what the European Union does. We will listen to Parliament and give Parliament a say in that. I thought he wanted Parliament to have a say in these things.
Yeah, Serene, he won't. And I tend to agree with you, the Gaza. The EU was created by the CIA to oppose the Soviet Union. I don't have a tinfoil hat on for that. Excuse me. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, no, fuck it. Let's just continue.
That sounds awfully like a recipe for regression away from those standards and damaging workers' rights. Mr. Speaker, after the two largest defeats ever in parliamentary history, surely the Prime Minister should be listening to Parliament. She didn't answer my question about whether or not an agreement reached in this House would become the negotiating position of the government. I think the House, and perhaps more importantly, the whole country, deserves to know the answer to that question. Mr. Speaker, this country is on hold while the government is in complete paralysis. The vital issues facing our country, from the devastation of public services to homelessness to knife crime, have been neglected.
No, they haven't. We've all known that they've been going on. We just decided to point at it and go, it's happening. And then go back to our cups of tea and our crumpets.
The Prime Minister is failing to deliver Brexit because she can't build a consensus. Is unable.
No one. There isn't a single person in that room that could get a consensus. That is what we firmly managed to definitively prove tonight. There is not a consensus for any idea in that room. This is why many people with their tinfoil hats have said that this is an attempt by all politicians to simply stop Brexit from happening. It is pathetic.
Able to compromise and unable to reunite the country. Instead, she's stoking further divisions. She is unable to resolve the central issues facing Britain today, and she is frankly unable to govern. The Prime Minister faces, Mr. Speaker, a very clear choice. The one endorsed by the country and many of her own party: either listen and change course or go. Which is it to be?
Yep.
As we all know, if she gets a deal across the line somehow magically within the next 2 days, then she'll go.
Mister!
But she's about to say something really fucking cringe and annoying, so I'm going to let her do it.
Can I just say, the right honourable gentleman raises the question of the indicative votes tonight. I actually answered that question in this House earlier this week, but he might want to talk to his shadow Brexit secretary, who's made clear that actually the Labour Party won't commit to supporting the result of any of the indicative votes tonight. And then he talks about what's happening in this country. Well, let's just look at what is going to be happening in this country next week. Nearly £1 billion extra for the police.
Not as much as you think.
£1.4 billion more available for local councils.
Not as much as you think. In fact, it's less.
£1.1 billion extra for our schools.
No.
Another fuel duty freeze.
Yeah, but we still have the highest in Europe, don't we?
Another rise in national living wage.
Yeah. Cost of living, though.
Another tax cut.
Lol.
That's under the Conservatives. What would Labour give us?
The deflection, fuck's sake.
He wants to scrap Trident, he wants to pull out of NATO. It would...
The only thing he doesn't want to pull out of is Diane Abbott.
Labour would give us capital flight, a run on the pound, a dropping living standards. The biggest threat to our standing in the world, to our defence and to our economy is sitting on the Labour front bench.
And I tend to agree. Let's not scrap Trident. Seriously. He doesn't have an alternative method. He believes that his pacifism is... Oh dear God. That face. What? I mean, that's just mute because he doesn't know what to say. He's got a script. What the fuck is that? Can someone screen cap that for me? And meme the fuck out of it. I'll move my mouse out of the way. Someone just give me something. I don't know what to do with that. It's just... That's... something. Looks like she sat on a dildo.
Maggie through!
Right, so this question I'm going to let play in because this is actually quite interesting. She raises a rather good point about voting, and it's relevant when Blackford asks his question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would my right honourable friend undertake to reform the government's online petition system, which currently accepts unverified signatures from across the world? This fundamental floor can produce an inaccurate reflection of public opinion on important issues, such as revoking Article 50, and leaves our democracy potentially under threat from the manipulation from foreign state aggressors.
Notice how she didn't say the Russians. I forgot to add a video. I know what I need to do. I need to go back here a second, because I have an idea. I'm going to upload a video quickly, in the background anyway, and then I'm going to play it, because it's really important I play this video. Where is it? There it is. Unlisted. Right, yeah, you upload the background, it's fine. The indicative vote stream's over. Right, yes, let's go back here.
My honourable friends raised a very important issue, and can I just say that, like the traditional paper petition system, we do need to have an e-petition system that aims to strike a balance between allowing people to easily recognise their support, register their support for issues which are important to them, while discouraging dishonesty from taking place. I've been assured that the Government Digital Service have been constantly monitoring signing patterns to check for fraudulent activity, but I'm sure that my honourable friend will understand that I can't comment in more detail about the security measures that are taken, but petitions are subject to checks as part of due diligence.
Right, we'll go back to here for a second before Blackford speaks, because I want to make sure that video is uploaded first. It's nearly done. I need this for Blackford, because somebody says something really stupid. Blackford does as well. And I really, really want to talk about it. Because it's so... delicious. Ah, fantastic. Right, open that. Oh, it's still being processed, that doesn't matter. Right. Close that. Put that there. And right, so actually I have something. An image I want to show you. It was made for me and sent to me over Gab. Dropbox. Here we go. It was sent to me over Gab. Somebody made it for me. I can't remember who you are. But yes, this is the Paper Fiddler. What do you think? Pretty good, huh? That is quite the kingly gift. Thank you, Bear. Enjoy the ghost poo. I'll get rid of this now. Right, let us continue.
Ian Blackford!
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure you'll want to join me and welcome the member of the 6th Royal Scot Reserves who are joining us in the gallery today, and to thank them for their service. Mr. Speaker, it is becoming increasingly clear that the cost this Prime Minister will pay to force her disastrous deal through is the price of her departure. Yet again, another Tory Prime Minister is willing to ride off into the sunset and saddle us with a
bye-bye, Liam.
Crisis in the UK and an extreme right-wing Brexiteer coming into Downing Street. Does the
define extreme right-wing?
Prime Minister feel no sense of responsibility for what she is about to do?
Prime Minister. Gentlemen, it is my sense of responsibility and duty that has meant I have kept working to ensure that we deliver on the result of the British people.
Ian Blackford!
That's a quick answer. Mr. Speaker, let me help the Prime Minister. She can still change course. It is not too late. On Saturday, I joined opposition leaders and 1 million people to demand a second EU referendum.
Oh, you're so gay.
Mr. Speaker, 6 million people have signed a petition online.
Right. 6 million people have signed a petition online, everyone. Right, well let's go here, because this is important. I recorded it earlier on OBS, so we need this. This guy here, and it's still processing. I do apologise for the low quality, but it is the best I could do. But yes.
The member for Lowestoft, my good friend.
Oh crap.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? We are here today, and I, like others, would welcome the constructive tone that many have struck in this debate today. But it's March the 27th. We've known for so long that the end date was March the 29th. To start this kind of debate, which should have started so much earlier today, is unprecedented.
You're not far off, Beechin, and this man's going to confirm it.
A mark of failure for the whole process. I'm not one of those who can say that I've changed my mind through this process. I represent one of the most Remain constituencies in the country. I'm a passionate Remainer myself. And I found that difficult at times, because I recognise that for many of my colleagues it's a much more difficult position to be in. But I just caution colleagues slightly about the policy discussion that we're having today. Because while we may well be able to move to what looks like a rational compromise, I've wondered throughout whether that's really where many members of the public are. And if I need any proof of that, I have to say that when I floated the idea some 6 months ago in this chamber of revocation...
I do apologise that he's talking a lot, but we're going to get to his point soon, I promise.
I think it felt like a bit of an outlier position, quite frankly. But if I needed any confirmation of that, it's the extraordinary strength of the petition that's been running in the last few weeks. I'm a member of the Petitions Committee.
Oh, dear God.
I would say I thought it's unfortunate that aspersions were suggested on the veracity of the petition earlier today.
Oh, no.
The staff worked very hard. Frankly, if there were Russian bots crawling all over parts of one of the campaigns in the referendum campaign, I think we can send a strong message.
Oh, fuck off with this shit. Seriously, fuck off. Yeah. The veracity of the votes. Oh, dear God. Oh, it's just...
Demanding that the Prime Minister rethink her strategy. And today, this House will give her a way out. A chance...
Oh, before he does it, he mentions that there's a way out. He mentions the strength of the 6 million voters. It's 5.8 and most of them weren't even from this country. And he mentions revoking Article 50. He doesn't mention it. That's what he thinks is the right thing forward. Important to note, 6 million plus 1 million is still not more than 17.4. You pudgy little fuckface.
To prevent disaster. Will the Prime Minister finally respect the will of Parliament, or will she continue to allow Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom to be held hostage by the extreme right wing of the Tory party and the DUP?
This disrespectful attitude about what the people voted for is sickening. It really is, because he's now saying that is his view is an elitist view. The majority of Parliament doesn't support Brexit, but the majority of the people do. You either defy the will of the people and you collect your P45s at the door, or you respect the will of the people, enact what the will of the people says, that affects the entire United Kingdom, and you get to keep your jobs for another 4 years, maybe 3 years even at this point. This is disgusting. Yeah, then no one is... There are a couple of people who might hold right-leaning views that are considered far-right, but they are not far-right. I'd say this government, most governments, most parliamentarians at the moment are quite sort of either nearer to the centre, slightly off it, and then you've got Labour. This is stage 4 cancer now. I hope you didn't mind that I included an additional clip there. It was delightful. I don't need to play Prime Minister's answer because quite frankly it's not needed. I am going to do one thing because I'm a good person. My friend Diskanar is currently streaming Skyrim and he's a fucking idiot. But it's funny. So please consider going over there and watching him. Because I'm going to go and join in the voice chat and chat. It might even be over there soon. So I hope you'll have a lovely evening. I will be streaming Euro Truck tomorrow instead of Political Recap with Trups. That will move to Friday because of D-Day for Brexit being on Friday. I say D-Day charitably. We have no idea what's going on. But I'm going to do Euro Truck instead tomorrow. So have a lovely evening everyone. Thank you for joining.